It's almost spring, isn't it? Magpie. Two of them. And for sorrow, two for joy. We have actually on both sides of the Atlantic, you have a government within the government. It's finally dawning. Actually, Donald Trump has known this. It's called the swamp. He started to drain it 2016 to 2020 because of the choices he made in choosing his staff. It wasn't effective, and he didn't have a majority in either house anyway to be able to do anything with it, nor did he have a popular vote. Different circumstances now, and besides, from 2020, actually 2021 to 2025, Biden did everything he could, and he brought the swamp back in. Of the managers in the federal government who voted for Kamala Harris, 80% have said that they would resist anything that the Trump administration will do. Remember that when in the US, when a new president comes in, they bring in a new civil service, effectively a head of civil service, and not just people like Robert F. Kennedy and whatever else. They bring in minions, thousands of people, and the previous lot go. And then when the end of this term, if J.D. Vance doesn't win, if he does stand, if he doesn't win, for example, he might decide to keep, if he does win, he might decide to keep the same staff or bring in some more of his own, have a reshuffle, and then they carry on. But if he loses, for example, the Democrats can get in, they'll bring in their own staff. That's how it works. That's how the system works. So 80% of these managers in federal government who voted for Kamala would resist. Do everything they can to resist anything that Donald Trump and his civil service will try to do. Those who know the Constitution better than I will know that that's not really a good idea, is it? We're going against a directly elected president on the popular vote. All the executive orders can be overturned by Congress. It is up to Congress to decide whether or not they would want to. And they have the mechanisms to do so. When Donald Trump signs each EO, he knows that potentially they will do, and he has signed some of them in the anticipation that they will get challenged in Congress. Some of the baby deletion ones, for example. He signed them to provoke a debate and to provoke, to bring it to the attention of the Congress so that they can also discuss it. So that all these senators and representatives, they can be fed on, they can feed on opinions from in their home districts and use that to decide which way to vote. That's how it works. But generally these 80% of what our managers, they are a government within the government, unelected government within the government. And it's the same over here. If you remember, Yes Minister and then Yes Prime Minister, Sir Humphrey and the Civil Service run the country. And as Dominic Cummings has pointed out, it's not the Prime Minister who's in charge. The Prime Minister probably doesn't really know what's going on. It's up to the Civil Service. So in that respect, it can probably cut Keir Starmer some slack, just that he happens to be on the same side as the Civil Service. That they're deciding what goes on, and he's just sort of the topping. He's not working against them. And the other thing that's come out of the US is that Treasury have been, the officials, the payment approval officials in the Treasury have been told to authorise every single scrap of paper that crosses their desk, not challenge anything, even if it was from known terrorist groups, banned terrorist groups, obviously, or from fraudulent, or payments to fraudulent companies or organisations, known fraudulent organisations. Just rubber stamp the whole lot, just approve, 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 and approve, and approve, which they did. Obviously that's come to the attention of the Department of Government Efficiency, and the Chief of the Treasury has resigned rather than let Doge conduct an audit of the spending. He refused point blank, so he resigned rather than allow an audit. And this has been going on for decades and decades and decades, because they can. And it'll be the same over here. Actually, we know this because contacts I have done studies, have found ways to improve spending, cut spending. Civil Service nods, takes on their report, files it, and forgets about it. That's how it happens. Well, that's how to repaint. That's how you do it. So, excuse me. So the Doge, you could do that over here, but there is, it's known. Management consultants, people inside Whitehall, they know all this. It's widely, it's an open secret, essentially. Those who have had access to the accounts and the spreadsheets and monitor what goes on know just how bad it is. But of course, nobody's willing to implement it because the civil service has the complete say, and they won't cut spending. They won't cut their little fiefdoms. So they are a government within a government. One he didn't vote for, one he got anyway. So even if Reform got elected to a full majority government, or any of the uni party, SDP, no. Homeland, these are Heritage, these are other non-uni party parties. Say one of them, Reform most likely, more likely than the others, form a government, for example, lead a coalition. They could come in and then be stonewalled by the civil service, who would just have a tantrum, sit in their hands, or just actively undermine. That's happened to the Tories, and that's happened since the Brexit referendum result. They actively undermined, tried to reverse it, tried to reverse the decision, tried to come up with a deal that kept us as close as you could. Remember Ollie Robbins, I think it was working with the EU during the negotiation to scupper any positive deal and to try to keep us in, effectively keep us in. That's how treacherous they are. It's a government you didn't elect for, but it's a government you had anyway. And remember what happened to Dominic Raab 2 years ago. Dominic Raab, was forced to resign. Rather, because he simply asked them to do their job, which they didn't do. So there's obviously a high expectation of high performance within civil service, and that didn't happen. So they forced him out. So they had a cry about bullying. This is the first video of two. We need to split this up into 10-minute chunks. So that's what the civil service has been doing here in resisting